Hey everyone, Straw Hat Pecan here, back from my store. Treasure Cup did manage to place first in this one with Julie Bonney. Had a lot of fun, a lot of great matchups. Wanted to go over my deck list, show it off, go over my thoughts in the matchups if you're somebody also playing Bonney as we kind of wind down set 7. But I think this deck is still very good in set 8 with some new additions that I've gone over in the channel a little bit, but did manage to get the Perona from winning. And then also shout out to the locals that hosted it, giving out some 01 packs. Managed to pull the Blue Doflamingo from it, so very excited to check him out in set 8. But yeah, love the card. Very happy with how today went. So I kind of wanted to go over my matches. There was about 27 people, so we had 4 rounds. Would have been a 5th, but I ended up being the only undefeated after that 4th round. So 4 rounds. The matchups I played was Enel round 1, Luchi round 2, Red Purple Law round 3, and then Enel again for round 4. So a lot of heavy hitters in my matchups, you know, a lot of very meta decks. I think Bonney is again very consistent. It does pretty good, and wanted to go over my deck list. You've probably seen a lot of these by now, you know, but I do think some of the ratios are kind of important, and like to give my thoughts on it if you're somebody who's just looking to play Bonney, because again, I think she'll still be very good in set 8. We'll probably see some of the same leaders, albeit minus Red Purple Law in set 8. So getting into the deck list, we've got 2 of our zero cost event. I know some people run 3, maybe even 4. We do run a few bricks. However, we run so many blockers in the deck, so many 2K counters, that I feel like this being searchable with Baby 5, 2 copies is fine. Definitely could bump it up to 3. There's a couple of cards I'll talk about being able to cut out, but 2 copies of that, our only event in the deck. Next, getting into our searchers, we've got our Bonney, 4 copies. Look for a Supernova. Obviously, we want to find Cavendish, we want to find Arouge, we want to find Hawkins, especially. So many matchups, getting Hawkins on the board as fast as we can is crucial to winning. If we can get 2 Hawkins on the board, it's really good into pretty much any matchup, right? Like right now, it's super hard to get rid of them. We want to be able to find them. So 4 Bonney, great searcher. Next, we've got our other searcher of the deck, the Baby 5. Added this in recently after a lot of debate. I personally didn't use it for a while, just really focus on my Supernova, but I feel like the 10-drop Doflamingo is just way too good into so many matchups, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Finding the 10-drop consistently is just so crucial, so definitely want to run this as a 4 of. So we got 4 of that, so 8 searchers in total. Definitely need the 10-drop in the Luchi matchup for sure. I feel like that is really important. Next, getting into our 2K counter, we've got 3 copies of Baby 5. I'll bring out all the 2Ks right now just because we can go over that as an overview. 4 copies of Viola, and then 3 copies of Scratch Manapoo. I think if you're going to run any one Scratch Manapoo, you want to run the EBO1 one because it actually has an on-play that could be effective. I just have this one because it's my fancy one. That's the only reason, but yeah. So we've got 10 2K counters. There is a split right now that I'm running that is 7-3 for Don Quixote versus Supernova. The reason being is this Baby 5 searcher, really its only goal right now is to find us that 10-drop Doflamingo. Yes, we do find the Rosinante blocker as well, which is great to combo out with Kid. However, I wanted to lean more heavily for our 2K counters with our searchable ones for the Don Quixote package, because it really feels bad for a whiff from one of these searchers. So by the fact that we have so many Supernova characters and just putting in at least 3 copies of a 2K counter that's searchable from Supernova, neither of these searchers feel bad to do at any point because we'll probably always find something. We also can find our 0 cost from that. So really good to know about what you want to be searching for when you go to search. You know, even if you have the searcher, if you don't really need to, you know, if you think you might be just bottom deck something you want to find later, you know, you might want to think about that before you go to search. Next, getting into our blockers, we've got 3 copies of the Rosinante. This is super crucial for Luchi and even Enel, you know, if you're playing out the 8-drop kid, want to be able to defend it, this is our best blocker to do so, except for red-purple law matches, because he's 1k power. They can just bottom deck it without any kind of reduction. But in the Luchi matchup, Enel, you know, if he tries to Kingdom Come the 8-drop kid, he can't. If Luchi wants to KO the kid, you know, he has to KO this first, which is doable, but requires a bit of extra steps, you know, make them spend as much resources as possible to get the job done. That's our goal. So 3 copies of this, great blocker to play out from the 8-drop kid, but really the only time I'm playing this out is from the 8-drop kid, so don't need it really at 4 copies. Next, I've got 2 of the Bartolomeo. This is really, I only ever liked using it for the 8-drop kid to play out in a red-purple law matchup. You know, he's got the 4k power stat line, so he needs to use something to reduce it to be able to bottom deck your blocker. It also does kind of help if you play out this on an early turn, if you have nothing else to play out, and then you search, because the searchers resting themselves activate the Bartolomeo effect after the search is done. So if he's on the board, you go to search, you tap this sideways to search, you'll do your search, and then afterwards you draw 1 and trash 1 from his cycle effect, which is great, you know, if you're trying to dig deeper for like a Hody or something like that that's not searchable. Definitely don't need him super too much, especially after Law is gone, but he's still a pretty good blocker. Next, we've got Arouge, 4 copies. You know, this is pretty much a staple for in Bonney. Hitting that 4-5 stat line, 1k counter, and then being able to restand a Don. You know, we have to have a Don active for leader ability, obviously, so hitting this early is just super good, you know. Being able to turn anything our opponents play out pretty much sideways so we can swing into it, kind of starve them out of cards. Feels great. It can become a little bit awkward to play them out a little bit later. You know, you probably want to play out your big bodies, but seeing them early is great. I mean, that's why we run the Bonney Searcher. Hopefully we can find them for our 4-Don turn. Obviously, you pretty much want to go second always with this deck, I feel like, but really feels great to get him out early. Next, we've got one card that everyone loves to target as soon as it hits the field. We've got our Cavendish, 4 copies. Obviously, restanding 2 Don is crazy in this deck, you know? Being able to be super Don efficient. I love being able to, if I'm going for game towards the end, you know, if you're going to play out a Hody, you know, that's 7 Don. That's a lot of Don. You won't have a lot to attach. If you have this on the board already, you Hody. Now you have 5 Don to play with if you just swing 6. You know, restanding that 2 Don can be crucial. And then if you play out like a 10 drop or something, you can use this to restand 2 Don. If you are getting pressured pretty fast, you know, they're trying to rush you down, say you're already at 1 or 2 life by the time you're at your 8 Don turn. If you have Cavendish on board, you will have enough Don to use the 8-drop kid effectively, because you'll be able to play out the 8-drop kid for all of your Don, swing with Cavendish to restand 2. Now you have 1 for leader ability and 1 to attach to the 8-drop kid. So definitely reasonable to always play 4 of that, and reasonable for every one of our opponents to always kind of target this guy. Next, we've got 2 of the 5-cost Jewelry Bonney. You know, this is a great card, being able to freeze one of our opponents' Don or just any one of their characters, but we don't really need it too much. It helps out in matchups where you do pretty well into anyway. In my opinion, like Black Yellow Luffy is just, it's so good. Being able to hit them off of their 10 Don means they can never Gecko Moria and use leader ability, which is like the combo that deck wants to do all the time. In any yellow matchup, they can't use any 10 drop. You know, if you're facing a Katakuri, making sure they can never use their 10 Mom feels great. Enel can't use Rush Ace, which, you know, keeps a little bit of pressure off you. They can, of course, Yamato, but the Ace 10k Rush is always great. So keeping them off that 10 Don, really good, but not super needed all the time, so just 2 copies. Next, we've got Hawkins, 4 of in every Bonney list. Just one of the best bodies in the game right now for green, for any Supernova deck. Honestly, like, The fact that he is a 6/7, great stats already. He's a blocker, and then it is really hard to get rid of him because of his effect of being able to rest one of your opponent's characters anytime they go to remove him via effect. You know, very limiting in how you can remove it currently. Does get a bit easier to remove in set 8 with like things like Jack or something that turn themselves sideways to KO, but right now, very, very sticky body. Next, we've got 4 Hody Jones. I mean, one of the best ways to end a game with green. There's so many matches where my opponents banking on me not having this, so having it at 4 copies definitely helps me have it. Also, crucial in the mirror matchup, being able to rest a Don and a blocker makes it really easy to kind of clear board. Also, in the Nami matchup, being able to rest their blockers or anything you don't want them to bounce back to hand, or their Don, you know. Resting Don can really throw off a Nami player's math, so definitely 4 copies of that. Next, we got 2 copies of our 8-drop Kid. I know I talked a lot about how important this card is. However, you really only ever need to play 1 in a game unless they KO it, which is pretty difficult with Rosinante. Pretty difficult to swing into him. I mean, he's 8k body already, which makes it hard. If we have a Don for leader, like, it makes it even trickier. Really only ever play 1 of these per game, so just want to find it. If it's a matchup where I feel like I will need it, obviously I'm going to try to target it with my Bonney search or just kind of mulligan for it. But 2 copies. I've played it at 3 copies. It felt like I was finding it too much, honestly. So just 2 copies right now feels great. Next, a card that I'm starting to kind of agree that we can cut. The 9-drop Zora. I know that's kind of controversial. You know, it's very much a winner of games if it sticks. However, if you're looking for space in your list and you're feeling comfortable with how the deck runs, I kind of agree that this is a bit of a win more card. You know, if we're piloting correctly, if we're playing out other big bodies, other of our top end, we don't really need the 3 swings from this guy all the time. It does feel great when it works, you know, and he sticks and it doesn't get immediately removed. It does demand an answer. I will agree. You know, it does feel great when they have to spend their next turn kind of using at least 6 Don to like Red Rocket or Kingdom Come, or just spend a lot of resource to get rid of it. But I can see reasoning for cutting that, you know, but just 2 copies. Again, it does feel great in the mirror matchup. It does feel great against Enel, but yeah, I don't know. I've tested a few lists where he wasn't in it and it still felt pretty good, you know. Next, getting into our last card, 3 copies of the 10-drop Doflamingo. This card, I feel like, wins me more games than Zoro sometimes. Just freezing 3 Bonnies is insane. That's why I added in the Baby 5 Searcher. Like, I fully agree now that seeing this card when you need to see him is crucial. In Luchi, freezing their leader, and anything else, honestly, but the leader especially, getting rid of that free -1 and the cycling out for their trash is just, it helps. You know, we still got stage Luchi for like a week or so. So with stage, it's still pretty doable to KO this, even without leader swing. But it makes it harder. It makes it harder. He's a 10-drop, 10k power. He can probably stick. And just buying us another turn, essentially, with freezing 3 of the character or leaders really helps. I want to kind of go into my matches now. So again, I faced an Enel player round 1. Definitely helped getting the 8-drop Kid. I was able to kind of stick that on board and just keep pressuring their board while being able to defend an 8k body. It's a lot easier. With Enel, it almost becomes a matter of burning out their resources, so it's kind of easier to get rid of, or at least deal with, their big bodies, you know? Having Hawkins on the board against Enel, it's like, if you keep them at 2 life, their Raigoing the Hawkins feels okay, because they have to make sure every one of their bodies is tapped, right? So they have to give us things to swing into. And then also if they're at 2 or 3 life, they have to trash that life until they're at 1. So they're losing resources by focusing the Hawkins. So my goal with Enel was to establish at least one of the Hawkins, and then the 8-drop kid. Being able to defend the 8-drop kid is a lot easier, obviously, than our life. So I was able to kind of go down in life and just defend the kid using these bodies and a Cavendish. I was able to kind of burn my opponent out of resources while I kind of built up my board to go for game. Round 2 against the Luchi, the MVP was definitely the 10-drop Doflamingo. And I want to say really quickly, shout out to everyone that I played against. Everyone was really nice and just had a great time today. So if you can go to a Treasure Cup at one of your locals, definitely recommend it. The store regionals, the store Treasure Cups are definitely great environments. So definitely check them out if you can. And yeah, again, shout out to everyone that I played against. But yeah, round 2 against the Luchi, I was able to see what I needed to see. You know, my game plan is Hawkins into a 10-drop Dofi at some point, because the Hawkins, hard to get rid of, right? 7k body, help me swing into them. And I'm swinging with Hawkins. You know, I don't try to leave him standing too much. You know, if they want to attach a ton of Dawn to try and KO him, you know, we run a decent amount of 2Ks, couple 0 cost events, you know. I don't mind dumping a bit of my hand to defend it, but I'm trying to pressure the Luchi down before they can just get a bunch of geckos on the board and just keep recycling blockers, right? So it's a bit of a rush down, honestly. So my goal was to establish Hawkins, and then I was able to get 2 10-drops on the board. He was able to KO one of my 10-drops, but I still was able to keep this and another 10-drop, so I was able to just go for game the following turn, right? It is a bit of a stall matchup in the way that, you know, we're freezing their board, but still we're just trying to pressure them down with big bodies, right? I did feel bad he didn't see really what he wanted to see in trash. That always helps, of course, against a Luchi matchup. But again, freezing their leader with this on 10 Dawn, like as soon as we can, definitely helps, because if they're looking for stuff in their trash, getting rid of that 2 cycling to trash from the leader swing definitely helps for sure. So definitely the MVPs of the Luchi matchup. Again, Hawkins and that 10-drop Doflamingo. Next, against the Red Purple Law, same thing. I kind of just played on curve. You know, we went searched turn 1. Turn 2, we played out the Arouge. Turn 3, Hawkins into another Hawkins. At this point, yes, a Red Purple Law is very aggressive of a deck. They're trying to rush you down, but having 2 of these on the board that they're not going to really get rid of too much, and then dropping a 10-drop after that, you know. In Red Purple Law, it is a little bit of a starve matchup. You want to make them have to find their Reiju, their queens, to get the pieces that they need, because if not, then they're playing 2 cards out from their hand each turn. You know, we're at least turning one of them sideways with leader ability, so we're going to try to swing into their board, burn resources, develop our big bodies, and then swing in for game later. So definitely about burning cards out of the Law's hand and hoping they don't just find all of their Reijus to help replenish it. So again, Hawkins, great body in every matchup so far. And then for my last match up against Enel, again, I'm looking for the Hawkins. I played around finding that. I did manage to get a Zoro, I think turn 2 or so, from drawing into him. The only problem with Zoro really, again, is he's not searchable in the deck. We do have a little bit of cycle from Bartolomeo, but not too much to find him consistently. The Zoro did stick, which again, I guess contradicts my opinion of, you know, being able to take him out. But the Zoro stuck, really just getting 2 turns where I swung 3 times at him and just burned out all of his cards. He wasn't able to keep up with it, and I just had a big hand to defend. It really kind of, the MVP of the 3rd or the 4th round with Enel, you know, was the Zoro for sure. But again, if I didn't happen to find the Zoro, I would have done the same thing. Just find the Hawkins, find the 10-drop, develop our big bodies, and apply pressure from there, right? Enel is about playing out big bodies, right? That's what Enel wants to do. So if we respond with our own big bodies that kind of counteract theirs, you know, if they swing at any point and that big body, we can turn sideways with leader ability. boom, we play out a 10-drop Dofi next turn, make it a little bit less efficient for them, right? Of course, again, it's kind of hard to play against a 9k body swinging at you 3 times each turn, right? But not always going to find the Zoro, so definitely got to play smart, play around it. Again, with Enel, I'm looking to find Hawkins, because honestly, even on Enel, if I have a Rouge on my 4-Don turn, I might not even play him out because he's going to get hit with Gadatsu. And if I don't play him out, sometimes they wait a little bit to play out Gadatsu. Sometimes they don't even develop a board at that point. They might end up just passing back to you, you know? So let them just keep that big hand while we play out our bodies that they can't really get rid of. And that's another reason I don't really hit life into Enel so much for the first few turns. You know, I want to make sure if they're going to KO my Hawkins with a Kingdom Come the Raigo, that they at least have to trash something to make it a little bit more costly for them, you know? If any deck's going to get rid of something of ours, I want it to be a lot of resources for them, you know? Bonney is a deck where, you know, we run 8 searchers that can repeatedly search if they're not killed. We have 5 life. We have a lot of ways to get very big hand size, right? So if we can keep a big hand size and keep that undisrupted while chipping away at our opponent's resources, developing our big bodies, that's pretty much our win condition for any matchup. But again, Hawkins, I feel like, is the overall MVP for today, along with my 10-drop Doflamingo. I ended up not even playing Hody at all today, oddly enough. But that just goes to show that if you're applying pressure when you need to, where you need to, you don't always need the Hody, you don't always need the Zoro, but definitely when you do need them, you need them. So definitely like the ratios that I've got going for the deck list right now. Of course, let me know what you think of the list down in the comments. If you've been playing Bonney, if you want to play Bonney, definitely a fun deck, and I think it'll be still very good in set 8 with some of the new additions in green. But yeah, for the most part, our game plan is just develop our on-curve bodies, try and get resources out of our opponent's hand. Except for Luchi, I feel like we kind of need to rush Luchi down as much as possible, as much as we can, right? We don't have a lot of aggression up our sleeve, but trying to burn cards out of Luchi's hand, you know, actually swinging with the Hawkins early on, really crucial for the matchup. Because if they get to their 8 to 10 Don and just keep dropping geckos, recycling Rebecca blockers, you know, KOing our bodies that they can, like any Cavendish or a Rouge, it's going to end up being very hard for us, you know. So definitely want to try and apply pressure as early as you can. But yeah, that was all my matchups. That's my list. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Bonney was a lot of fun in set 7. Looking forward to trying to make her even better in set 8. Honestly, green's been my favorite color and been a lot of fun to play. I'm very happy with the list. And again, shout out to the locals that hosted the Treasure Cup, Cryptic Collections, and shout out to everyone that I played today. Everyone was very nice and had a lot of fun. Again, if you can go to a locals that hosts one of these special tournaments, definitely try to. It's a great way to meet players you might not see at your locals all the time, or just have some fun, you know? But either way, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the deck list. Hope you got any kind of information from it if you're thinking about playing Bonney, or if you want to learn what to do against Bonney, I guess, you know, because that's pretty much what I want to do with this deck. So if you're looking for some insight, that's definitely my thought process with stuff. But of course, if you have any other questions, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you all in our next video. Bye-bye.